Who can tell me what an integer is? Actually, before we even do that, make sure you have the title and the date, because you will need the title and the date on your notes. Obviously, right? Yeah. Okay. What is an integer? Yes.
It's like negative numbers and positive numbers.
Negative numbers, positive numbers. Can anyone be maybe a little more specific?
Any whole number.
Any whole number. Okay, so no decimals, no fractions. That's super important. No decimals and no fractions. Okay, so an integer, let me write it down. And again, this should all be review for you. So integers are positive and negative whole numbers. And that also includes 0. 0 is not positive or negative, so it doesn't fall in the whole number category, but it includes 0. And again, that should be an IM1 review, right? Now, when we're talking about rules for positive and negative numbers, you should remember them from IM1, and really even before that. So what happens when you have two negative numbers? Okay, hold on. Let me rephrase that. When we're adding two negative numbers. So for instance, -5 plus -3. What do you get? -8, right? Can someone explain to me in words what you did there without telling me, like if I had no idea how to do the math, what happened? What'd you do?
What I would do is, since both of the numbers are both negative and they're both negative, so no number is bigger than the other, they would just combine together to get -8.
Okay, so you added the two numbers together, right? You added 5 plus 3 to give you 8. And since they're both negative, you keep the sign, right? They stay negative. That was awesome. So add together and keep the negative sign. Now, don't we technically do that if we're adding two positives together? Right? 5 plus 3 is 8. They're both positive, so we keep it positive. Do you agree with that? Okay. So what happens when you have a positive and a negative number, like -5 plus 3? -5 plus 3.
You essentially subtract the numbers together.
So you subtract the numbers. Whoops. Subtract the numbers. And then what do you do with the signs? How do you decide which one you're going to use?
It depends on which number is bigger.
Awesome. So keep the sign of the bigger number. So if we're following that, if we subtract the two numbers, 5 minus 3 is 2. And we keep the sign of the bigger number, which happens to be 5, so we keep it negative. Do you remember going over those rules literally on like day 1 of IM1? Yeah? Okay. Last year? So if I asked you this question on the test, do you think you can answer that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So let's look at the rules for multiplication and division just in case. If I have two negative numbers and I multiply and or divide them, what's going to happen? If I multiply two negative numbers together or I divide two negative numbers, what's going to happen? It's going to be positive, right? Two negative numbers gives me a positive when I multiply or divide. What about two positive numbers? Positive. And what if I have one of each?
Negative.
It's going to be negative. Okay. I will tell you that as we go throughout the semester, the place that I see the most issues arise on like tests and quizzes is with your basic operations, is with adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Because you forget the signs, maybe you just don't multiply something right. This should be the one thing you don't mess up. Okay? So 1, take your time, and 2, worst case scenario, you can use a calculator. Okay? So this is where I see the biggest issue as we go through the semester. You can do the geometry and you can do the algebra, but for whatever reason, our basic operations, I think our brains work faster than our hands do sometimes, and we get all messed up. All right, so let me give you a couple examples. What I would like you to do is try each of them on your own, and then once you have all 6 done, I want you to talk with your group and make sure that everyone in your group has the same answers. Okay? So, -1 plus a -3. -2 plus 2. And if you're not sure what something says, please let me know. Apparently my 8s look like 2s. Okay, so again, take a second, complete those 6 problems, and then once you have all 6, check with your group and make sure everyone has the same answers. If someone in your group doesn't, let's figure out who's correct and talk through it, okay? Let's see how we did. -1 plus a -3 should have given you -4. 2 negatives next to each other make a positive, so 2 plus 2 gives me a +4. -6 times 7, -42. 40 divided by -5. Good. -3 plus 7 is 4. 4 minus 8. Good. And -4 times -2 is a +8. So if we have those questions on a test, we're good? Yeah? Okay. So let's talk about order of operations. This tends to be taught incorrectly in some cases, and I'll explain to you why in a second. But what's the acronym that you know for order of operations? PEMDAS. Okay. So we all know PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, probably for most of you, right? Does anyone know any other ones?
Please excuse my detention after school.
Oh, I like that. Please excuse my detention after school. All right. What does the P stand for? Parentheses. But it also includes brackets and braces. Okay? You may see any of those 3. Parentheses, brackets, or braces. E is pretty straightforward. What does E stand for?
Exponents.
Exponents. And real quick, I'm going to go back to parentheses for a second. If you have multiple sets of parentheses, you're working from the inside out. Okay, so you do the ones on in the very center and then work your way out if there's multiple sets. Okay, exponents. Here's where, after exponents, here's where things get tricky for some people. What does M stand for? Multiplication. Okay, we know that. And D stands for division. The issue is a lot of people think it's always multiplication first and then division, and that's not true. You always work from left to right with these two. Multiplication and division are equal to each other. Okay, so if division comes before multiplication, then you do the division first. Same with your addition and subtraction. Okay, you always work from left to right. So we can look at it as like a pyramid where parentheses are on their own. We deal with that first. Then we deal with our exponents. Multiplication and division are equal to each other, and so are addition and subtraction. You work from left to right. This is where we get mixed up. Okay, so for those two, you work from left to right. They are equal to each other. And the reason they're equal to each other is because they're inverses of each other. Does that make sense? Have you heard that before? That's not new information, hopefully. We're about to find out, right? I'm going to give you 5 problems that I, again, want you to try on your own. Use order of operations and then work with your group to see if you have the correct answer on those. Okay? So, numero uno. This is your kind of question? Kind of, okay. Sure you can. And again, you should know how to do, you should have seen all of this. Like none of this really should be new information for you. Oh yeah, don't freak out on me. Okay. So again, take these 5. Some are obviously easier than others. And solve them on your own. And then as soon as you're done, wait for your group to kind of finish up and then talk to your group. So for this first one, first thing we have to deal with is exponents. So 3 squared is 9. So it's really 7 plus 7 times 9 divided by 7 times 2. Okay, I'm just fixing things. What would I do next according to order of operations? Here. Multiplication. Yep, 7 times 9 is?
63.
Okay, so I have 7 plus 63 divided by 7 times 2. Everyone still with me? 63 divided by 7 is 9. So I have 7 plus 9 times 2. What's after that? Multiplication. 9 times 2 is 18. 18 plus 7, you should have gotten 25. So if it takes you writing out every single step, write out every single step. If you don't need to, that's okay. All right, let's look at this next one. If I deal with the inside parentheses, 2 minus 4 is negative 2. So I have a negative 2 here. What's going to happen, this negative and a negative? It's going to be a positive, right? So I'm just going to make that positive. What is 2 to the 3rd power? 2 times 2 times 2? 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. 10 times 3 is 30. Okay.
I don't know what I said. I don't know what you think.
All right. Number 3 should be probably the most straightforward. You have 3 times 10 times 2. 3 times 10 is 30 times 2 is 60. Okay. Number 4 should be relatively straightforward also. All right, number 4. First thing, 6 times 2 is 12. Okay, so 12 plus 9 divided by 3 minus 6. So I just rewrote it all. What's next? Divide. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So 12 plus 3 minus 6. 12 plus 3 is 15. 15 minus 6 is 9. All right, the last one. This shouldn't be a hard one, but there are a lot of steps, and if you try to do it all in your head, this is where it gets confusing. Okay, so if we work with parentheses on the inside out, we're going to start here. 2 plus 1 gives you 3. Okay, so I'll even rewrite some of this. Here we go. What do I deal with next?
Exponent.
Exponent.
The exponent. So 3 squared is 9. And 9 minus 3 gives you 6. Do you see you still have brackets to deal with? We have to deal with what's inside here. So 8 times 6, 48, plus 2 is 50. And 50 divided by -5, -10. So if you don't do it in your head and you write down the steps, it makes it a little easier probably, and a little, or not even easier, but more just more manageable, right? Okay. Any questions?